everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all types of topics related to narcissism. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. It's a free way you can help me out, and definitely don't forget to leave a comment because I like to read what you have to say. Several years ago, I read this book by Eric Metaxas called Miracles. It was quite a bit ago, so my recollection of the book might not be book review ready, but essentially, it was a book that described real-life miracles. One of them really stayed with me, and I've thought of it many times since I read the book. So there was a man who was at church, and he saw real angels. Now, he described them as being huge. When I say huge, like 30 to 40 feet tall, and spectacularly beautiful. He said it was like he was suddenly seeing into a different dimension. His description of them was so mesmerizing that it stayed with me. And even today, there's many occasions I'll be at church and I'll ask God to let me see any angels that are around me. No luck so far. But for the man who did see them, he could never unsee them. It's like that with narcissism. For a long time, we live not knowing, not seeing. But then for many of us, suddenly and shockingly, we do see. We know what is in front of us. A pathetic creature, definitely no angel, a narcissist. Like many of you, when I think of my ex, he disgusts me. Everything about him revolts me. And pathetic really is, I think, the most accurate description of him. By definition, miserably inadequate, of a very low standard. And that brings me to today's video. Because it isn't just my ex that's that way, all narcissists are. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss 5 traits that make narcissists pathetic. So please in the comments, put down any that I missed because I know there are a lot more than these 5 traits. So the first one I'm going to discuss is that narcissists are human parasites. So like any parasite, they live on or in a host at the expense of the host, us. At their very core, narcissists are dependent on other people for their survival. They're like an addict, but in a narcissist's case, they're addicted to narcissistic supply. Like most parasites, they don't actually kill the host. Instead, they weaken us to a point that we don't recognize ourselves. We lose ourselves in these relationships. We're bullied, gaslit, given the silent treatment, devalued, abused. They leech off of us in every way. In my case and in Joe's case, our exes literally stole from their own children. That's a human parasite. The second trait I'm going to discuss is narcissistic rage. You will not soon forget what narcissistic rage looks like. I've experienced narcissistic rage verbally and physically. A narcissist in a rage will annihilate their victim. And if you're the child in the middle of a narcissistic temper tantrum, it might scar you for life, literally. For any of you parents, have you ever said something to your child in a moment of frustration and then lived to profusely regret it? We all have. Well, a narcissist never regrets it. They like to hurt other people. They don't care if they hurt their own children. It's a release for them and they enjoy it and they don't feel bad afterwards. They'll hurt whoever they darn well please. When my ex would get angry, he would verbally slay the kids. They were stupid, nothing without him, etc. With me, typically he would go straight into a silent treatment, or sometimes he would destroy the room he was in. I've seen my ex throw a computer printer across the room, smash pictures. Now, this is also what I witnessed growing up with a narcissistic father. I don't generally talk about my childhood on the channel, but I grew up in a narcissistic home. My father is an overt narcissist, and my mother's codependent, and he could pitch a fit. To this very day, I'm actually hyper vigilant around an angry man. I can recognize the smallest flicker of anger in a man. And because narcissistic rage has terrified me, I'm very vulnerable to feeling fear. The first time I can remember seeing my father pitch a fit, have narcissistic rage, I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade and I had gotten a C+ on my report card. I can remember this to this day, you guys. I come home and my mother was very, very upset. And she was upset, not because she really cared about my grade, but because she knew what my father was going to do. So she sat me down. I had to sit down on this couch. I had to wait there for hours until my father got home from work. Just terror. I was terrified. It was horrible. It was torture. My father gets home from work and he did not disappoint. He pitched a fit, yelling, screaming. I was stupid and embarrassment, whatever he said. Then he goes up to my room and he literally trashed my room, destroyed it. He took everything off the wall, everything off the bookcases. He ripped the bed apart, emptied all the nights, all the drawers out. This is back in the olden days when I had records. He broke all the records, screamed, yelled. It was horrible. Then I had to pick up the room. Well, on my hands and knees, I'm picking up the room while he's screaming and yelling at me. It was horrible. It was terrible. Even when I'm telling you this, I can feel it. From that day on, the rest of my childhood, my father was obsessed with my grades. And the thing is, I did get good grades. In general, I did get good grades, but it was never enough. I know you can do better. I know you're smarter than that. If you throw up every single day before school, then you throw up every single day before school. You will get straight A's. My father used to come into my room in the middle of the night on a regular basis. He would storm in. He would do it purposely to terrify me. So he would bust into the door, flick all the lights on, and start screaming, literally get to the bed, pull me up, push me down into a chair and tell me it's time to study because I am going to get good grades. I am going to get into a good college. I am not going to embarrass my family. There's no way I'm doing that. I was terrorized as a child. My father used to, the summer before school, the summer before each school year, he would find out what books I had to read, what I was doing for math, all that type of thing. I had to do it all that summer. So I would have to read all the books. I had to do all the math. That's what I did in the summer. I did my schoolwork for the following year. My father was obsessed. Because of that, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. I couldn't wait. I literally counted down the years, the days until I could get out. There was a time, I was actually talking to Joe about this recently, where I had one time figured out about my average, how I averaged, the average number of hours I slept, and computed that to days to try to see, all right, how many days am I really unconscious living at the house? And for a time, I tried to nap after school before my father got home so that I could spend more time asleep, so I could be unconscious for a longer amount of time. By the time I was 18, when I graduated high school, I was out of there, and I never went back. This was how I grew up, and this was actually part of the reason why I ended up in a narcissistic marriage later. And I know this happens to many of us. It's what we know. It's all we know. It's how, for us, and it sounds absurd now, but this is us awake now. We're seeing the truth. But when we don't know, this is what we see. This is our normal. It's all we know. When I was growing up, I don't have really a family now, but I didn't when I was growing up either. Even though on my mother's side of the family, there's a lot of people. My father didn't like them. They were low class. We couldn't be around them, the typical narcissistic thing. So I didn't have a large family. So I didn't have anybody that I could really relate to and see how people were. So this was all I knew. This was what family was. So later, when I got together with my ex and he started doing these type of things, it was how it was. I didn't think to myself, wow, he's being abusive to me. How dare he? I'm not going to put up with this. I do try, and I'm very, very grateful that my own children see through this. Now I'm very grateful. Recently, some of you may know, my ex, who hasn't had anything to do with my children for 2 years, wrote them an email. Now my ex has been giving my children a silent treatment for 2 years. My belief right now is if somebody gives you a silent treatment, the best thing, the only thing you should do is make it permanent. My children, I was able to witness them doing this. So my ex hadn't spoken to the kids for 2 years, and like any abuser, once the silent treatment's over, everybody's supposed to act like it never even happened. And that was what he was expecting to have happen. He sent them an email. Guess what? Silent treatment's over. Dad's back. My children opted to make it permanent. Now, I didn't tell them to do that. They did this on their own. I was actually, even though I realized that I'm talking about my children losing their father, but at the same time, whether or not they respond to the silent treatment, he's the same father, they made it permanent. So they learned the things that I've gone through in a way are worth it because my children have learned. I've been terrified that I left my ex too late, that my children have seen too much, that they've witnessed too much. But in this case, I actually have evidence that my children are going to be okay, that they did better. So the third thing I'm going to talk about is that narcissists never grow up. They're eternal children, emotionally stunted. Now, my ex just turned 48. But really, you can take the 4 out of his age for the real number. I married a child. And what happens is, for all of us, we assume our partner is an independent adult. I wouldn't have thought otherwise. That's how I was, so I assumed he was. That's how I assumed all adults were. In my case, my ex, even now, always remained dependent on his parents. And that was one of the problems in our marriage. There were really 4 of us in it. Me, my ex, and his parents, so it was a bit crowded. My parents did pay for a decent portion of my education. You know how important education was to my father. But since I graduated high school, I paid for all my living expenses. Sometimes my parents would buy me some new clothes or would give me a little bit of cash. But once I graduated college, I was completely on my own. And actually, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. When I was in my 20s, there were times where I really scrimped together to save for rent. I mean, it was tough. I didn't have a car for several years. I used to take the bus everywhere I went. My ex, on the other hand, didn't live that way at all. But there's a difference in our independence. And I would much, much rather be an independent adult than dependent on my parents. God, especially when I'm in my 40s. But for my ex, he never had to do anything. So even when I was married to him, my ex would ask his parents for things. I can't imagine ever asking my parents for things like this. He would ask his parents. So we moved to New Hampshire. And our yard was 4 acres, but the majority of the yard, so probably, I don't know, it was around 1.5 acres was actually, land that we had to mow the lawn. And my son was too young to mow the lawn. He was only 7 when we first bought the house. So my ex actually called his parents and said, "Oh, I have a bad back, and can you please get me a riding mower so that I don't have to, so I can mow the lawn?" And his parents did. He needed a new computer. Guess who bought it? He wanted a new car. Guess who bought it? This was the type of thing that I couldn't stand. I couldn't tolerate it. I can't even tell you how many fights we got into over it. But for him, these are my parents. They want to do this. He also used to look at his parents. He used to, like, if I was telling you about my parents' house, that's how I would refer to it as, my parents' house. My ex, it was our house. So, he was still with his parents. It was their house. My ex-in-laws also owned several mini golf courses on Cape Cod. They were their mini golf courses, that type of thing. My ex never separated from them. And these are like red flags to me now that I wish I had recognized at the time. When we first got engaged, so we got engaged in November. My ex went away with his parents to Aruba over the holidays. And he was in his late 20s. And I did think that was odd. But it was even odder because, I have kids. I could see myself wanting to go on vacation with them. But what I can't see is giving my 28-year-old son spending money when we're on vacation. That's the degree to what it was. And even now, today, my ex-in-laws are paying for the divorce. Now, for me, I have a very different lifestyle. I have a very different situation with my attorney. I have to be careful how much I talk to her because every single minute I talk to her, she's charging me. I don't have unlimited money. My ex does. They're actually paying for a high-powered attorney to try to annihilate me. This is what's going on. So just like I was married to the 3 of them, now I'm divorcing the 3 of them. But they don't give any regard to me being the mother of their grandchildren. It's, she must pay. She must pay. How dare she leave an abusive situation? That's what they're looking at. So my ex, to this day, is still completely dependent on his parents. Now, the 4th thing I'm going to discuss is they are pathologically jealous of you. Narcissists are threatened by your success, any success. So instead of saying congrats or good job, way to go, whatever, instead they minimize, deflate, and ignore you. Narcissists are threatened by you. This is also done to children. Narcissists get envious of their own children as well. My ex could not compliment our kids without inserting himself. So for example, if our son made a good play in baseball, guess what? He got his talent from my ex. My kids are both particularly good at mathematics. Now, remember, I homeschool my kids, so I'm the one who taught them math. However, they get it from him. This is what he'll tell them. Oh, they get the math skills from me. Even my ex-in-laws say that. Narcissists feel powerful when they look down on you. The messed up thing for me, and I'm sure many of you, if you think of it, know this, it's always been that way. Since I grew up with a narcissistic father and a codependent mother, my father would always say he would always insult me in some way. I grew up this way. It's what I always knew. So what my father would do, he was very focused on appearance. Appearance was huge to him. So if anybody complimented my appearance, he would say this, yeah, she's pretty, but she's not beautiful. Like that type of thing. It could never be, thank you, or isn't that nice? That's how a narcissist is. They have to say something negative. It's like they can't help it. A narcissist also, another thing I'm going to discuss is number 5, gratitude. In a narcissist case, what is gratitude? From my children's earliest years, I've instilled gratitude into them. Even when my kids couldn't write by themselves, they sat down with me and we wrote thank you notes together. If you do something for my children, they will say thank you to you. My kids would never take, say, the last cookie or the last slice of cake. They have manners. Now, that is not the case with a narcissist. Narcissists are entitled monsters. They really believe that they deserve the best of everything. It used to annoy me to no end that my parents would give my ex money for his birthday. They always gave everybody $250 on a birthday. So they'd send out a check. I would thank them. My kids would thank them. My ex, not so. He would just, and it used to embarrass me too. He would get this check and he'd immediately go down to the bank and cash it. And my mother said to me actually a few times, oh, he wastes no time getting that check cashed. Yeah, he would just he would cash that check for sure, but he would never say thank you. Even when he would see them the next time, he would never call them. He would never thank them. He would never write them a note. It was just, this is my money. It's my birthday. I get this. It's mine. I mean, that's really how he looked at it. And a narcissist never thinks of anybody else. So like I mentioned, my ex is a 48-year-old spoiled child. And, narcissists are the do you know who I am type of people. So my ex would complain about how expensive speeding tickets were, but he would regularly speed and rack up tickets. For a time, my ex used to shoplift. He used to shoplift and then brag that he was so good at it. When I think of who I was married to now, it mortifies me. Joe and I have talked to each other about our embarrassment, even to each other. And we get it. Joe's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want you to know who I was married to. And I said, well, that's the same with me. You don't think I get that? It's exactly the same. It's probably the same with all of us. Once we're awake, once we understand and we see who we're with, it's horrifying. It's so embarrassing. When I think about it, I talk about my ex in this channel. It's embarrassing to tell you who this person is that I willingly married. But the only thing that we can do really is learn from it and be better in the future. It really is like the guy at the beginning of the video when I was talking about who saw the angel. You can't unsee it. And thank God we can't unsee who we were with, who we are with, how pathetic, how miserably inadequate, how subhuman a narcissist really is. So with all of that, I do want to end on a positive note. For all of us, this is true. As adults, we are the directors of our own lives. Our lives and our children's lives are in our hands. You can't afford not to. Joe and I regularly talk about the grandchildren that haven't been born to us yet. We make today deliberate and purposeful decisions for them. It's our greatest desire to see in our own lifetime the legacy of abuse stop with our own children. The next generation will never know, and it's up to us. It's up to all of us. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really grateful. I always appreciate everybody watching my channel. I do have a lot of fun things coming up. I'm trying to get stuff organized. I was working with my daughter yesterday. I have a giveaway that I'm going to be doing on the channel soon. So look for that soon. I'm trying to get something organized first before I can do it. But I do have something coming up. I have some fun stuff. I hope everybody has a great day. And I will see you in Friday's video. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of the week. And I'll see you in a couple days. God bless everybody.